keep it in the infinitive form. Let's go with this other verb. Study. What is the gerund form? You add the ing, it will be studying in English. In French, it is what? Étudier. That is non-verbal étudier. You keep it in the infinitive form. Now, what about irregular verbs? Some verbs have irregular forms in one or both languages. For example, you have this verb, go, that is irregular verb in English, go. What is the gerund? It's simply going. You add the ing, going. But in French, what is it? You simply aller will be aller in the what we call non-verbal, the gerund form in French. You keep it in the infinitive form. Aller becomes aller. What about this other verb, be? It's an irregular verb. In English, the gerund is been. In French, be is être. What is the non-verbal or the gerund form in French? It simply remains être. Être. What about this other irregular verb? Have. Gerund in English is having. 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 In French, avoir. That is have. What is the non-verbal gerund in French? Avoir. Avoir. Now let's see now some conjugation and we try to compare them in the two languages. Let's start with the English example to eat. English example to eat. What do we have in the present tense with this verb? You just say I eat. What will be the verbal noun or the gerund in English? The present is I eat. You will be eating. What about the past tense? To eat will become I ate. Now what about the verbal noun? You will still be eating. What about the future tense? We will say I will eat. What about the verbal noun? It will remain unchanged. It's still eating. Now what about French now? Let's still take that verb to eat. What we call in French manger. To eat is manger. Now what about what we call le présent? That is present tense. Le présent in French is je mange. Présent is je mange. What about verbal noun? What we call non-verbal? As we said, it simply remains in the infinitive, will be manger. Manger. Simply put as verbal noun. What we call in French non-verbal, it remains manger. Now what about the past tense? What we call passé? In French it is j'ai mangé. Past tense is what we call passé. J'ai mangé. What is the verbal noun of manger? It still remains manger, infinitive form, unchanged. What about the future? You will say je mangerai. Je mangerai. What about the verbal noun? It still remains manger in the infinitive form. Now, what are some key differences between English and French to make things easy for you? The formation, first of all. In English, the gerund, we always add ing. But in French, it is the infinitive form of the verb. You just keep the verb as it is. What about the usage? They can be used as subject, as we saw with those examples up there. For example, in English, what do we say? Swimming is fun. And you see here that swimming is a subject. Swimming, that is the gerund. In French is what? Nager, amusant. Instead, you see we keep it nager in the infinitive form. We don't change the verb. Nager est amusant. And also, after prepositions, we usually have the gerund in English. For example, good at singing. We're having singing, ing, because we're having a preposition. What about French? Doué pour chanter. We are also having the preposition here, pour, but we have to keep the verb in the infinitive form in the French language. Doué pour chanter. And now we have some irregular cases. We saw this verb, go, that is an irregular verb. What is the gerund? Going in English. Now what about French? Go in French is aller. How do you keep it in French? It will still remain aller. As we said, you don't change. You keep it in the infinitive form. That's why we say here, no change. Let's see now some special cases and some exceptions. English exceptions. Some verbs change spelling slightly in English. For example, we have run. Since we have just one sound, what do? Since it's ending with a consonant, we have to double it before we add ing. You know the rule in English. It will be running. We double the N. What about lie? Lie is a special case. We cannot just add ing. We have now to cancel everything and add, first of all, this y. Before we add ing, we drop this e. Becomes lying. That's the gerund. Now, what about the French exceptions? Some verbs have different meanings as nouns. For example, we have the savoir. That is what we call in English to know. Savoir, to know. Now, what will happen? It will become now le savoir. Le savoir is what we call in English knowledge. You will not just say savoir, it will make no sense in French. You have to add le. It becomes now le savoir. You will not say the knowledge, no. In English, we just say knowledge, but in French, you have to say le savoir. It's true, we still have the infinitive, but you need to add le so that we easily understand in French that it is knowledge, le savoir. You have pouvoir, that is to be able to. To be able to. Le pouvoir. Le pouvoir is what we call in English power. You not just say pouvoir. You say le pouvoir. Now, what are some final notes? English gerunds always end in ing as we saw. Always. But now French, what we call non-verbal, they use instead the infinitive form of the verb. French non-verbal, what we call gerunds in English, non-verbal in French, they use instead the infinitive form of the verb. Both can function as subjects, as we saw some examples, objects, or follow prepositions. Meaning that by repeating and repeating, practicing and practice, you'll be able to master these gerunds in the French language. Thank you very much for paying attention.